Vavanai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavanai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So now that Lord Krishna has answered the first question of Arjuna, what is that thing which will give you fulfillment in life, not some coming and going fulfillment, but the real fulfillment which will not go is when you know the nature of Atma. The nature of Atma happens to be a non-struggling. The nature of Atma happens to be the truth of the whole universe. The only independent reality upon which all the Jagat, which is what? All the names and forms depends. And not only all the names and forms, but also the time and space framework within which all the object, the time and the space framework within which all the objects exist. So therefore, if this is what you know about the nature of Atma, will you ever really say that, oh, I'm no good? Will you ever make that statement? Oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm grieving, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. That vocabulary will change, not because you are trying very hard to put a brave face. It is because of what you understand. It becomes natural. So therefore, this is the vision of the wise person. And this is what gives the final fulfillment. Now, if Arjuna was left alone with this knowledge that, okay, you are the whole, and everything is Duryodhana's Atma and your Atma is one. Atma never undergoes any destruction. It doesn't undergo any change. It is never modified. It is always new. And all the bodies depend upon Atma, including Arjuna's body and Duryodhana's body. And after this teaching, if Arjuna was asked to make decision about what to do, what do you think would have been his decision? Hey, let me just know more in detail the nature of Atma, which will give me the fulfillment. And let me just go to one corner and begin to study.
You know it's a decision.
And anyway, what is all this grief and all this nothing? It's Atma is free. So therefore, this is what we say, that the intention of teaching is one, and what happens is we add our own meaning to it. So what the teacher has to do is to make it very clear, the implications of this knowledge. So therefore, he now moves, there is a change of topic. And he begins to answer second question of Arjuna. What is the second question of Arjuna? What should I do now? So therefore, Arjuna would have easily, what? With this teaching, it's very easy escape. World is mithya. So therefore, let me just go away from everything. So he makes Arjuna understand that the real implication of teaching when it comes to living your life. So, next verse. Swadharmamapi chavekshya navikampitum dharmathi yuddhat shreyonyata kshatriyasya na vidyate. Beautiful thing. So that means, as I told you, that within Mithya, what we call a dependent reality, there are two subdivisions. One is what we call is empirically true, and the second one is your projected reality. Now, when you want to know the final reality, which is your nature, your true nature, what first has to happen is your subjective projections, your personal projections as an individual, they have to reduce. Why do they need to reduce? Because imagine that a situation arises, right? And that situation, let's say, begins to make you angry. And it makes you frustrated. And you feel this person is unfair, this person is not nice, so that mental tape that we have for years gets activated. And then what happens is that you go along that thought, you give fire, you add fuel to that fire, and that thought begins to expand. So that means there is an external situation which is there, but your mental story has made that situation what? Much bigger than what it is. And along with that increasing of the story, your suffering also begins to increase. So now, imagine with this kind of a mind, which is not able to handle a simple situation, just objectively, and you go on adding your own stories and increasing your suffering. The same mind you have to use to listen to Vedanta. And Vedanta is a highly intricate knowledge. Not only you have to understand each part accurately, but you have to connect each part to everything else in a way that the whole vision is absolutely clear. You don't add anything, you don't subtract anything, you stay with the vision. But the mind, which is not able to see simple situations clearly and goes on adding and subtracting from the situation, you think that mind is going to be able to follow this teaching accurately? Not possible. That means when you hear this teaching, it creates some kind of a mental picture in your mind which may or may not correspond at all to what the book is trying to say. So that means one needs to grow to make the mind objective. And you don't start by, of course you can listen to the teaching, and that itself will give you a lot of understanding of different things which will help you in your daily life. But in addition to that, you have to stay where you are. And the same situations which gave you anger, the same situations which gave you frustration, the same situations which made you feel useless, you have to use the same situations to what? Get on top of it. That is your work. You can't avoid that work. So that means this is your growth. So this is why Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, I have taught you this knowledge of the nature of Atma. But that doesn't mean that now you say that, okay, let me just go and concentrate on understanding this Atma, and this job is a very tough one. Of not only, it's not a normal job of going to work and doing your things. It is fighting a war with your cousins and your... So therefore, he says, the same situation which is producing grief to you, you have to convert it into what? A situation where you see it in a different light, and then you do what needs to be done. And that is part of the growth. That is the step. So this is why he says that right now, so that means when Arjuna was looking at the problem in front of him, he had a standpoint. And what was that standpoint? It was, these are all my people and I love them, and how can I fight with them? That was his standpoint. Now we have to ask one question, was it pratibhasika or vyavaharika? What is his personal story of what is going on in the situation, or it was the real situation? So what Lord Krishna says, that empirically, if you re-look at the situation where you are in, you can tell yourself something totally different. Same situation. And you can see the same situation from another viewpoint, and that is Swadharma. What is this whole thing of Swadharma? Swadharma, by what the English translation is, your personal duties and responsibilities. Now, how do I know? Now, a lot of people ask me, how do I know what is my personal duties and responsibilities? Right? So that means one of the easiest ways to figure out what your personal duties and responsibilities are is to just look at how you are connected to the world. You may or may not feel connected, but you are connected. You are connected to your parents. You are connected to your kids if you have. You are connected to your colleagues, your boss. You are connected to your family, your friends. You are connected to the community in which you live. You are connected to the nation. You are connected to the world. You are actually connected to everything, whether you want it or not. Now, for everywhere that I am connected, generally what happens is, it is what we call the right-based interaction. What is a right-based interaction? Right-based interaction means if I am dealing with you, my whole focus is I'm doing what I want her to do or not? Is she behaving the way I want her to or not? I have the need for being loved. Is she giving me all the things that I need to be loved or not? This is what we call right-based. Right-based means, where is the focus in this relationship? My gratification. And I want everybody else to behave in a way which will satisfy me and gratify me. If this is the basis of my interaction, what is going to happen? Can any human being satisfy you totally? No. It's impossible. So that means you start, please understand, you start with dissatisfaction and you want somebody else to make you satisfied. And then what happens is nobody else is going to be able to satisfy you. So you will be ending up with not only your initial dissatisfaction, but an added dissatisfaction, which is what? She's not what I want her to be. So as we transact with the world, what happens is our dissatisfaction goes on what? Increasing. And the more dissatisfied we are, our need for satisfaction becomes more, and we become more demanding towards others. And as we become more demanding towards others, then what happens is not only we make others not happy, but we also end up being highly unhappy. So now, this is what we call your personal projection into the situation. Now, how can you convert the same situation which is not coming from and multiplying dissatisfaction, but it will give you satisfaction? How? Duty-based. Duty-based. The whole swadharma, your whole interaction with the world will have to make duty. If you make a little shift and make it duty-based, you can never be dissatisfied. If I tell myself, instead of saying, I want Anne to be this way, if I create a goal within me, and if I say, hey, every day, let me show one act of kindness to her. Just one act. Where is the focus? Is the focus in demand from her to gratify me? What is the focus? Tell me.
Your own behavior.
My own behavior. If the focus becomes my own behavior, where is the highest sphere of control I have? Do I have control over how she behaves? Not much. But do I have the highest control over what? How I behave? The highest sphere of influence, how I behave. So that means if every day, if I tell myself, okay, let me do one act of kindness to her today, what will it do to our relationship? Demands? Dissatisfaction? Every time you do something good to somebody else, as I told you, there is a feedback from the universe. And what is that feedback? That you will feel good. And that's what you want. So therefore, now if I feel good, then my need to feel, I want to feel good. So tomorrow, not only I will do one act good, because it is giving me satisfaction, tomorrow I will do 2 things for her, because it makes me happy. Over a period of time, what will happen is, my mind will move from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, contentment, enthusiasm. And as I become more and more kind towards others, and I become more cheerful, I become naturally less demanding. And as I begin to give her all the love and the support that she needs, how do you think she will respond? With equal kindness. And for some reason, even if she doesn't, she will. But even if somebody doesn't, it's still okay. Why is it okay? Because your act of kindness is giving you pleasure. And it is helping you to grow. And it is making you what? Somebody who's aligned to dharma, swadharma. Without this alignment to Swadharma, we will always be dissatisfied. There is a direct relationship between what you doing, what needs to be done, and your satisfaction levels. So therefore, here he says, now Arjuna, look at the same situation differently. You are only thinking, oh, overwhelming, sad, grief, that's what is coming to your mind, which is your pratibhasika. Let's re-look at the situation and see what's going on. There is this king. I think many of you listen to the story. That's why the story is very important. I can't start teaching without a story. Let's re-look at the situation and see that you, who is this person against whom you are fighting? Some great man? What is the character of Duryodhana? He's greedy. He's dishonest. He doesn't hesitate in cheating at all. He's constantly plotting and manipulating. And not only he is a small fish. If he was small fish, you could have ignored him. But he's a king. So that means how he acts, how he behaves, what are his values, are not only going to affect a few people in his home, is going to affect what? The whole kingdom. Now, in this whole kingdom, many people may not like him, like you may not like US President. May or may not, I don't know. But suppose you don't like, then what is your power to do anything to him? Tell me. Zero. But Arjuna, you are not one of those small citizens in the kingdom who has no power. You are put in the position in the scheme of things where you are a prince. And not only you are a prince, but you are one of the most skilled persons and brave and courageous. So that means you have a special position in the scheme of things. You are. There is something that you can do which many others cannot do. And if you don't do what needs to be done, and you are also born in a Kshatriya family, and a Kshatriya family is a warrior family, and the war, when it is fought for dharma, it is the highest honor, to protect people from somebody who is adhyatmic. So therefore, he says, hey, if this happens to be your duty, and if you don't perform your duty, what will happen? So many people, the corrupt person, the Arjuna let go so many times. Did it reform Duryodhana? It didn't reform at all. He became more powerful and he became what? More abusive. So therefore, you not only, it is, if you fight the war just to take back the revenge, that is a normal war. But if you fight the same war with the insight, the duty that you have towards the whole kingdom, then it becomes something that you cannot but do. Because if you don't act like that, then what will happen? You will give license to somebody who is highly corrupt to be more corrupt. And that will lead to suffering of so many people. So therefore, Arjuna, come out of your personal Pratibhasika story. What is your personal Pratibhasika story? Oh, they are my cousins. Oh, they are my loved ones. And how can I fight against them? To an empirical story, Vyavaharika story. What is a Vyavaharika story? I am connected to this scheme of things. And I have a role to play. Sometimes it's a difficult role to play, and passivity seems like the easiest way out. Not doing anything is so much easier than actually taking a stand and doing it. But when you don't do what needs to be done, then what happens is you continue to live from your stories. And as long as you continue to live from your stories, the empirical reality itself you don't understand accurately. Where is the question of your understanding the ultimate reality? Impossible. So that means every situation, as Carl just said before the class, can be viewed from what we call Jiva Srishti or from Ishvara Srishti. What are these terms? The same situation can be viewed from me, little poor person who's demanding, who's dissatisfied, who has this and who has that, and everything is bad and everything is, not good. And or it can be viewed from, I am put in this position. There are so many factors which have made me who I am, and puts me at that place in that time, connected to these people, and I do what I need to do in that situation.
And that's Ishvara Srishti.
That is Ishvara Srishti. Coming out of this crying, dissatisfied, little helpless human being, demanding, controlling, to a duty-based person who begins to see the whole situation not from this narrowly defined perspective, but a bigger, larger picture, and see what is expected of you. And doing which needs to be done. What it will do over a period of time is your level of participation in this world will improve. You will not only, the choice of decision making will not be only what? A kind of a what I like and what I don't like. It will be what the consideration will move from raga and dvesha. What I like, I try to get, and what I don't like, I try to avoid, to swadharma, what is expected of me. You need to move in your criteria for decision making. The more and more you begin to move to this criteria for decision making in terms of what is expected of me in this given situation, what is my contribution in this situation. Rather than waiting for people to always cater to my needs, you will see that not only the nature of your contribution. That's exactly the movie that we showed on, who was that? When did we show it? But we showed it on Thursday. That little boy who helps the whole thing by starting to do what he had to do, instead of sitting and complaining. You were there, you saw that.
We can show it, it's only 2 minutes. So
yeah, so we'll show it later. So that means this is what we call converting your life of dissatisfaction into satisfaction. Because over a period of time, as I told you, when you begin to do what needs to be done intelligently, then what happens is there is a feedback from the universe. The seen feedback is your satisfaction. You are not doing it for, in fact, the minute I understand that I am being nice to her, not only for her sake, but also for my sake, when will I stop being nice? When? If I think that I am being nice to her for her sake, then when it is not convenient to me, I will stop. But if I see that by being nice to her, I am going to gain also, when will I stop? Never. So that means not only you will bring about certain happiness in lives of others, but you will change your own mental framework. Because the nature of the universe is such that no act of kindness goes unrewarded. Both in terms of seen result and unseen result. The immediate feedback that you get, and also what may happen in the future. Future means you never know. So I just had this Witzenhausen retreat, and they heard all this. So what they did is each one started, oh, let me get you some coffee. Today is my brownie point. So, so you don't want brownie points. But what happens, what is important in this mindset is you derive pleasure from being kind to others. That is a beautiful life.
Absolutely.
So that means this is what he says. This swadharma is very, very important. So that what he says, dharmathi yuddhat shreyonyata kshatriyasya na vidyate. If you look at the whole situation from the standpoint of swadharma, then what there is a yuddha. Kshatriya is, so in India you have 4 different categories of people, and that is true for any society. Any society has people who are intellectuals, who are thinkers. Any society also has people who are in the army and who are also kings. Then every society also has a business class, and every society also has people who do normal, normal day-to-day job. Now, depending upon what you are, there is a corresponding duty connected to that. So, Arjuna was born as a prince, and he was what? A warrior, prince warrior. So that means, as a person who is, for example, anybody who is in the army, what is their job? What is their swadharma? To protect. That's true. I mean, that is the highest. But generally the thing is protecting your country. That is the first level. Right? Normally what happens is the wars are fought to what? Protect your country. Right? But here he is saying, you are in the situation, Arjuna. You are not actually right now fighting. If you fight just to get back your kingdom, it's a normal person. But if you fight to protect dharma, if you fight to protect your kingdom, it's a different kind of a war. It is, the focus is you, and you want to get back. But if you fight to protect dharma means keep the, to kind of help everyone in the kingdom to be free from this king who is highly corrupt. Then that same war can be converted into what? Dharma war. Because it is not meant only for you, but it is for what? The larger good. When you make it for the larger good, then what he says, for a Kshatriya, there is no better war than that. Because you are not fighting for your personal gain, you are not fighting for your personal revenge, you are fighting for what? The larger good. And this may seem like, the way we are taught dharma, it may seem like, oh my God, war is certainly a dharma. But actually speaking, so many events in the history, you see that when somebody who is highly corrupt gets into the power and starts abusing people, ultimately what happens? Tell me. What happens? People just sit back and take all the abuse? Do they? Louis the 14th. The whole monarchy. There was a French Revolution. Because one monarch who had this very, absolute power became what? As in more and more power, more and more whatever.
Well, it took some time, no?
It takes time. But in
80
this
years.
case, exactly, takes years and time. And here also, when did the whole seed of this whole unfairness, when did it begin? From the time of Pandu's taking the throne.
It's a cycle.
So it's a cycle. But in that up and down cycle, Arjuna is at that point. And in that point, and with his skills and his position in the scheme of things, and there is a duty which is he has to perform. So therefore, that is what we call, this is how the whole humanity is. So therefore, he says, convert this situation as Swadharma, because in that understanding of Swadharma and doing what needs to be done, you will not only help others, but you will help yourself. And if you are thinking about the final knowledge, then it will prepare you for this knowledge. How will it prepare you for this knowledge? Because for this knowledge to happen, you have to move from your subjective, your projecting person to an objective human being first. As I told you, from snake to rope first, then the rope is mithya, and final reality is beginning to make sense to you. So therefore, this is the argument for Swadharma. Now, the next verse. Now, Arjuna asks a question and he says, now I understand that what you are somehow telling me is that you need to understand this reality. And in order to understand the reality, you need to reduce your projections and begin to do what needs to be done. And by doing so, you will not only participate well in the universe, but you will also help yourself and make yourself ready for the knowledge. But is there any person who finally gets there? Is there any person who he calls Sthita Prajna? What is Sthita Prajna? Normally people describe Sthita Prajna as somebody who is, somebody who's the wise person. That is the meaning of Sthita Prajna. Prajna means the wisdom, and that is Sthita. Sthita means it is the person who is well established in the wisdom. The person who knows the reality by preparing oneself for this knowledge. So Arjuna asks his question, is there a person who can achieve this? It almost seems like very difficult. And he says, if this person actually begins to understand, has totally understood the reality and has prepared oneself for it, then how does this person conduct oneself in this world? How does the wise person conduct oneself in this world? That is the question that Arjuna asked. You understand the question? Yes? Okay. Who is this wise person? Is there anybody who can actually become wise? Seems like a big thing. And if the person does become wise, how does this person transact with the world? So, the answer. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Patra Manogatan Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sita Prajnasya Durjate. Beautiful verse. Here he says, Prajahati Yada Kaman. Kaman means, here it means desires. And then is a description of a person who has understood the knowledge and prepared oneself for it. So here he says, Kaman are the desires. So in fact, if you don't pay attention to what the verse is saying, and if you say Prajahati is the verb which means who gives up. So then you may start thinking, oh, the wise person has no desires, because this wise person knows the reality of oneself to be everything. So you almost think about a person who is desireless, or what we generally talk, which is a very common use, where people say, oh, the person who's detached from the world. But this is not what Lord Krishna is saying. He uses one adjective to come up. And he uses the adjective which is Manogatan Kaman. What does it mean? It means the desires as they arise in the mind. So that means there is nobody who is desireless. Manogatan Kaman. As they arise, the person is able to decide what should I go with and what should I not go with. Generally what happens is the pressure of our desires is so strong that the minute the desire arises, it just captures us. Captures us in two ways. One is that when I, at any cost, I want to get what I like. So in that case, we become prisoners to desires. We don't manage desires, they manage us. That is one way we are totally taken over by desires. The second way we are taken over by desires is when things, what we desire, if we don't get, then again we go down. So that means desires begin to rule our emotional life. They begin to dictate the choice of our actions. And when desires have the ruling roost, then what happens is your life can go haywire. This particular, there is a Kathopanishad which uses this analogy, and it says, it uses these 5 senses and 5 horses, and the rein is the mind, and the person who's riding the horse is what? The person, the buddhi. Now, imagine that if the buddhi, which is you, who has goal in mind that I want to go there, then what you should do? Use the reins and the horses to get you where you want to go, right? But for example, if your buddhi, you're not very clear as to what you're looking for in life, and you have no goal as to where you want to go, what will happen? The horses will begin to, horses see water there, they'll go there. The horses see grass there, one other horse will go there. So what will happen is, you lose control. What will dictate where you go? The horses. Same thing. If you have no particular goal in life, then desires, whatever fancy, you see an object and you love it, somehow I have to get it. You see a person, you fall in love, and somehow you have to get this person. The whole show is run by what? Your desires. And where is this karma, where is your sense of dharma? When it is convenient, you follow it. When it is not so convenient, forget it. So that means desires have power over us. They dictate what we do, how we think, how we feel. What Lord Krishna says, the wise person, it's not that the wise person doesn't have desires. The desires don't run the wise person. The wise person manages the desires. So that means in your mind, if a desire occurs, you have a choice whether to go along with that desire or not. And how will you make that choice whether to go along with it or not? You have to test it against dharma. What is dharma? The dharma means, here in this case, in the previous verse, he was talking about swadharma. What is swadharma? Your duties and responsibilities. In this case, it is not only duties and responsibilities, there is another aspect of dharma, which is what we call samanya dharma. Samanya dharma means the universal ethical values, which are not just my specific duties and responsibilities based on my position in the grand scheme of things. There is some kind of a behavior which is what expected of every human being. How? Because every human being knows, I don't want to be hurt, I don't want to be cheated, I don't want to be lied to. And every human being also knows others don't want the same from me. So that means now that you may have desire for promotion, wonderful, there is nothing wrong in it as such. But in order to get the promotion, if you are going to manipulate your boss and say stories about your colleague, what have you done to swadharma or samanya dharma? Have you followed it? No. So where are you operating from? Jiva Srushti or Ishvara Srushti? Jiva Srushti. You are operating from your need for promotion. And what you don't have in mind is what is the right thing to do. So that means when you make choices which are only governed by your needs, your expected fulfillment, what will happen is you will add what? You will add load to your being. What is the load? Every time you go against universal dharma, it will give you conflict. It will make you feel guilty. This is the universe's response which tells you the nature of your action. So that means when you go against dharma, the cost that you cannot avoid is conflict, guilt, fear of being caught. Low self-esteem because you have gone against what you know to be right. And in addition to that, what will also may happen is that you become suspicious of others. Why? Because you say things which are inaccurate. If you can go to your boss and tell stories about your colleague, how long does it take for the colleague also to do the same for you? So that means whether the colleague is actually doing it or not, you will always suspect. So that means you have kamas, you have a desire to get promotion, and if that is the ruling thing for your decision making, and if you go and do something which is against dharma, you end up with this huge cost. The huge cost is guilt, fear, low self-esteem, suspicion, ultimately distrust in life. Because you can't trust anyone. Anyway, if you do things, others can also do it to you. So you can never relax. Frustration, then stress, then what? It will start manifesting as physical ailments. So that means this is the cost of going, the desires being the only criteria for your decision making. What a wise person is doing is, yes, you can have desires and you can what? Go for it, provided it is within what? Dharma. Because by following dharma, you avoid all this cost. And as you begin to avoid this cost, you are more and more close to Ishvara Srishti. And as you are more and more objective, you prepare more and more for this knowledge. So the wise person is the one who is the master of one's desires. Is not afraid of desires. Manogatan kama. But at no given point in time, the desires begin to run the show. The rein is always in your hand. And the criteria for decision making is dharma. So this is what the wise person is like. If you can master the desire in this way, desires don't pose a problem. You don't need to run away from the world. You can stay in the world and you can be on top of it. Then, what? Atmanyevatmana tushtaha sita prajnasya uchyate. So that means, now, imagine, how can you, every time, see, sometimes what happens is, imagine, even if, for example, in this case of promotion, you say that, okay, I'm following dharma, I'm not going to, manipulate anything. And suppose you don't get promotion and others get promotion. What will happen? You will again, what? Be in a dissatisfied mode. Because before what? You thought that, oh, following dharma will fix everything, but the result didn't come your way. So again frustration starts. Frustration has many ways to enter your mind. How do you then keep the sight? The minute you begin to recognize, please understand the second part of it. As we saw in the very beginning, what did Arjuna see? That no situation is going to give me the absolute happiness. If you have that in mind, then you can handle what? Anything. If you think that this situation is going to make me happy, then when that does not happen, then what will happen? you will again get into frustration. Nobody can avoid it. When you begin to see the incapacity of any given object, any given person, or any given situation to give you the happiness that you are searching for, you can handle not having it. Until you don't see the incapacity, the dependency will remain. And you will only pretend, oh, I'm not affected. Actually, you are affected. The more and more you see that your satisfaction has got nothing to do with any situation, then your dependency on things will go. So just postulate. Even if you got promotion, for how many days you will be happy? 2-3 days. After that what? Something will come. Again, dissatisfaction. As long as you rely on external things to be the way they are for your well-being, you haven't understood the nature of the fundamental human problem. Arjuna sees very, very clearly whether I win or I lose. I don't see any way that I gain satisfaction. The only final satisfaction is not from objects, but what is the source? Atma, my true nature. So that means my transaction with the world is not done with the expectation that I want to derive satisfaction from here, because I'll always be dissatisfied, because things don't happen my way. But if your transaction with the world is with the knowledge that knowing my true nature is going to give me the satisfaction, and my transaction with the world is actually to help me grow and come out of my little vision of deprivation, helplessness, smallness, and to help me to grow as a healthy human being who's a contributor. Whether you get what you want or not, you are getting one thing, which is what? Your growth. And that is exactly what you are searching for in the first place. So therefore, this person understands Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. The ultimate source of satisfaction is never a situation, never a person, never an object. And the ultimate source of satisfaction is knowing your true nature, for which you have to prepare yourself. And preparation involves following dharma, both samanya dharma, the universal ethical values, and swadharma, your personal specific duties and responsibilities. Then the whole terms of living will undergo a drastic change.
Would you say that patience is a quality to develop for all this as a kind of preparation? Or because I think you can not understand it and then you will be able to live with
Very
this?
good. Okay, that's excellent. So that means, that's a very good question. Now imagine today I taught you all this. So from tomorrow onwards, anything happens, you'll say, oh yeah, okay, now I'm doing it all for my growth, and things will not give me the final happiness, and I want to know my true nature, and that is the only source of fulfillment, and this situations I have to convert for my growth. This will not happen, and it is true. You will go back to your previous mindset. This is how it is. So this is why learning Vedanta and assimilating this knowledge takes years. Because this preparation preparation is a challenging preparation. You have a tape going on in the mind, which is a habitual thinking. A given way of looking at the world, where you are constantly relying on certain things to happen to you for your well-being. This is a habit of living.
It's not a flash of realization.
Exactly. It's not a flash of realization. So that means what has to happen is the following. As you go out there and begin to live your life, things may not happen your way, and you will sometimes be able to bring back this teaching. And sometimes you will get into your previous way of looking at things. It's okay. Because there is no human being who can do just this reprogram overnight. It's not possible. But what you can do is, even if you go back to the previous habit, now you have the knowledge. Before you didn't even have this knowledge. So now, even if you go back, you can slowly bring yourself back. That you can do. But when you bring yourself back, you have to be very careful in how you do a self-talk. If you do a self-talk in the sense that, oh, see, I'm again going back to my old habit. Oh, I can't get it. Oh, it seems easy in the class, but you know, it never happens like this. Again, are you kind to yourself? No. You are highly judgmental. You are calling yourself almost a failure, and you are saying it can't be done. With this kind of a self-message, if you give to yourself, when you go back to your habitual thinking, you think you'll be able to progress? Not much. Your self-talk has to change. The first thing you have to do is to become alert and at the same time kind to yourself. You have to tell yourself, yeah, I go back into my habitual thinking, but there is no human being who will not. They will just do the right thing. It's okay, but I can always try, and I can always do better. And even after the situation has already happened, you can sit back and reflect what I could have thought differently. That you can do. The more and more you begin to reflect about the life, reflect about the self-messages that you give to yourself, begin to challenge your world view of things, more and more transformation there will be in you. And in this whole journey of yours, you have to learn to be alert and at the same time compassionate. Tell yourself it's okay. There is no human being who can just switch from one thing to the other overnight. It requires effort, it requires time, it requires alertness. This time I didn't do it, it's fine, but I'm going to try it again. And even if it has already happened, spend time on reflecting on that event and see what you could have done differently. The more and more you begin to do it, more and more the changes are sometimes fast and visible. Lots of people come and tell me that in a matter of 1 or 2 years, my life has changed. Unfortunately, what happens is the way Vedanta people understand or is taught, I don't know where the thing is. The whole thing is like, yeah, this whole, Swadharma a little bit, but then it's the ultimate knowledge. So what happens is people don't pay enough attention to transforming themselves. But so much of Gita is all about transformation. So much of it. Arjuna keeps wanting to go away, get away. And Lord Krishna keeps saying, hey, stay there. And convert this whole life as an opportunity for you to grow. So therefore, here he says that the wise person is the one who has proper relationship with every object in the universe. Neither you need to stay away from it, nor you need to what? Depend on it. There is a certain freedom that the wise person enjoys with objects of the world. So, just a small example. When I lived in Fiji for a few years, for 1 year, and there were these very wealthy Indian families. So there are about 2,000 Gujarati families, one state of India, and they own 80% of the island. Very wealthy. So now, as they become more and more wealthy, then they also try to be spiritual because now they have everything. So then they go to some classes, and the classes says, oh, this material world doesn't give you any pleasure. And they also see that because they are wealthy, but they can't avoid problems, right? So they have problems. So now you have to enter spiritual world. So now, this is a cliche statement of almost every spiritual person, so-called spiritual person. So what is your tendency? Yeah, give up everything material and let's move towards spiritual world. Now, what they do, they miss the point, and that is, in this vision of non-duality, where did you create two worlds from? In the vision of oneness, where are the two worlds coming from? What you see as material world, that itself is Atma. Do you need to keep away from things? Do you need to name things? The same thing which you see from your own ignorance seems like all what? Meaningless, this and that. The same thing you have to convert into what? Something which is meaningful. Your own existence, you have to make it meaningful first. And make use of all these resources that are given to you in form of body, mind, talents, resources. And then you can really, this understanding of non-duality will shine in your mind. Otherwise, you always have to be afraid of the world. So I told them, first rule is, please stop dividing the world into material and spiritual. All that is here is one. And the world is a platform where you can either suffer if you have ignorance, or you can grow. And in your growth, you can have proper relationship with everything. Neither you need to avoid money, nor you need to make money your final goal of life. You can have proper relationship with it. Money is nothing but a resource. What is material about it? It's a resource that is endowed to you, and you can use it the way you want. That's your free will. If you're given too much intelligence, will you complain? Why am I given so much of it? Let me be dumb. Any resource is an endowment.
There are many people who wish to be dumb.
Little dumber. Yeah, that is because they are given intellect and they are using it with ignorance. I mean, they are not using it wisely. Then the same endowment becomes a liability. So that means all these resources that are given to you, please don't condemn them. Because the minute you start condemning them, they'll run away from you. And when they go away from you, you will see, you will struggle. So that means life is nothing about just staying away from things. It's converting things which are giving you problems, because you see things with your vision of a jiva. And you can't handle anything properly because the whole reality is all jumbled up. The same world, you have to see it as it is. And therefore, the desires don't pose a problem for a wise person. But at the same time, there is no dependency on desire fulfillment for your well-being. Why? Because you understand Atmani eva atmana tushta. That ultimate source of fulfillment is my true nature. And the wise person knows it. So is able to move around freely in this world. Within Samanya Dharma, within Swadharma, but enjoying the beauty that is here. Participating actively, enthusiastic, cheerful, without any loads, burdens. This is, according to Lord Krishna, a wise person. Now, next. Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha, sukheshu vigata spruhaha, vidna raga bhaya krodaha, stitadir muni ruchyate. 4:50, so I have to stop. No, you can do the meditation. One more? Okay.
Okay.
Are you sleepy?
Can we open?
One more meditation? Or you are listening?
Can we open just the window?
I think nice to have a break.
No, wait, to open the window.
Open the window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to open the door.
This one? This one you can open.
This one.
Because Surya, it's 4:15, so it's okay. You can do meditation now. Then people will have a break. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Very big.
I was pointing on gently.
Okay. You want to do, or should I continue?
I think you can continue
Continue?
for 15 minutes and you can have
Break?
Right.
Break. Okay.
I'm tired, but no, I didn't sleep. But yeah.
Okay. No, then I have to also decide based on the feedback. So, okay. So what we will do is, you will do, I think meditation will be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
So bitte auch noch. Ich muss auch
close.
Yes.
go to the toilet.
Yes,
and then you
sure.
continue.
I continue?
The problem is that we need fresh air and
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate